Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Directors recessed meeting from last Tuesday, as well as our agenda meeting for our upcoming meeting on May 2nd. Madam Clerk, if you would you please read the roll for
Director
our recessed
Hendricks.
meeting?
Director Richardson. Director Peck. Director Hines. Director Wright. Director Wyrick. Director Campuris.
He's here.
Director Fortson.
Here.
Director Adcock. Vice Mayor Webb. Mayor Stodler.
Here. The first item of business I'm going to take care of is to take a couple of things off of our agenda meeting that we have and recognize the another great talented group of young men from one of our schools here, the Episcopal Collegiate School, who have shown their outstanding athletic ability by being in the 3A Boys Basketball State Championships this year. So with that said, let me call on Vice Mayor Kathy Webb to do the honors.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, city manager, Bruce Moore. On March 11th, 2017, at the Bank of the Ozarks Arena, the Episcopal Collegiate High Wildcats won the 3A Boys Basketball State Championship. They also won state championships in 2014 and 2015, and so with the win in 2017, they become the first 3A boys team in Arkansas high school history to win 3 state championships in only 4 years. They defeated, They defeated Tuckerman, which is in northeast Arkansas, a mile neck of the woods, in case you don't know, by a score of 61-47. The Wildcats led the entire game. 3 players, senior Cameron Brassfield, freshman Traylon Payne, and freshman Kaylin Robinson, each scored 18 points. Along the way in the tournament, they defeated Clinton, Paris, and Riverside to get to the championship game, and it capped off a season of 28 wins and 7 losses. All 7 losses came to schools outside of the 3A classification. Mr. Brassfield and Mr. Robinson were named 2017 All-State. Mr. Robinson was also named the 3A Boys Most Valuable Player of the tournament. He and Mr. Brassfield, as well as senior Gavin Hawkins, were named to the 3A All-Tournament team. No other 3A school had 3 players receive that designation. The Wildcats are coached by Brandon Friedel. David Perkinson is the head of the school, and DeVario Hardy is the athletic director. So if you all would come forward, and the coaches as well, I'd like to present you with this plaque. Yes, ma'am. We're going to have them introduce themselves. Okay.
All right. So, Coach, I'll let you
Go ahead then.
begin.
The plaque.
Oh, thank you guys very much for having us here. It's obviously an honor to be recognized here at City Hall. It's a great group of kids, man. They played extremely hard. They worked extremely hard, and obviously they deserved where we got. It's obviously an honor to represent Little Rock, represent Episcopal Collegiate, and bring the state championship back to Little Rock and back to Episcopal Collegiate where we think it belongs, and hopefully we can do it again in the years to come. Thank you, guys.
Have the players introduce themselves, but I need you to stay up here so I can give you the. If you know where you're going to go to school.
Yeah, the seniors, we hope that the juniors and sophomores are coming back to Episcopal, but if there are any seniors that know what you might be doing in the fall, please let us know.
I'm Gavin Hawkins. I'm attending Wheaton College in Chicago next year.
I'm Joseph Brownfish, and I'll be attending Southern Methodist University next year.
My name is Preston Pitts, and I'll be attending University of Arkansas.
I'm Boyd Bethel. I'm a sophomore, so I don't know where I'm going to college.
I'm Xander Lataquinte, and I'm also a sophomore.
I'm Max McCluskey, and I'm a junior. I'm Ethan Skronsky, and I'm also a junior.
I'm Traylon Payne, and I'm a freshman.
I'm Cam Brassfield, and I'll be going to Hendrix College in the fall.
I'm Shay Smith, and I'm a freshman.
I'm Kalen Robinson, and I'm a freshman.
I'm Luke Grauer, and I'm a freshman.
I'm going to read the plaque to you, and then we'll get a picture. Mayor Mark Stodla, the City Board of Directors, and City Manager Bruce Moore congratulate the Episcopal Collegiate School Wildcats 3A Boys Basketball State Champions. In the quest for the championship, the players and coaches exemplified outstanding sportsmanship, participation, leadership, responsibility, and teamwork. April 25, 2017. So, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Kalen Robinson right here, who's the All-State and MVP. Cameron Brassfield right here, who's All-State. Traylon Payne was also, he scored 18 points in that little championship game, and then Gavin Hawkins was All-State tournament.
I guess Kathy forgot that. Thank you.
There you go.
Can y'all scooch in a little bit more? Yeah. Like.
You might need to double up.
Hey, get 2 rows. 2 rows. 2 rows, guys. I'm the athletic director.
Skip it nobody.
Ready?
Thank you. Mayor, can this young man tell us who he is?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. My name is DeVario Hardy. I'm the athletic director at Episcopal Collegiate School.
Okay, Bruce, is anyone here for the Tree City USA recognition?
Weekend was Earth Day. This weekend is Arbor Day. So today it is an appropriate time to recognize that the city of Little Rock was named a Tree City USA for the 16th year. This designation is given by the Arbor Day Foundation in honor of its commitment to effective urban forest management. This time I'd like to call up our Parks Director, Truman Tofree, and Robbie Hudson.
Thank you, Bruce, to Mayor, Vice Mayor, and other members of the City Board. You know, I say all the time that in Parks and Recreation, we really do have a great cast of employees. And having said that, one of those individuals who has most, I think, played a significant role in part in us being able to receive this particular award today is our Robbie Hudson. Robbie, he is our urban forester as well as the city's arborist. So we're going to let him come forth and say just a couple of things about this award. Robbie.
Thank you, Truman. In the year of 2000, the city of Little Rock received the certification for the first time for Tree City USA, and ever since then we have been able to maintain that certification. There's several standards that go into being certified for Tree City USA, and one of the biggest ones is you have to have at least $2 per capita for the population. And I'm proud to say that our urban forestry division, we're a little bit over $3 per capita. So with that being said, that's a big step for us. Also, the Tree City, the tree ordinance for Little Rock, that's one of the standards that we have to meet. And in celebration of the Arbor Day. Now, in 2002, Mayor Daley proclaimed that March 18th be Arbor Day for the city of Little Rock. So we've already done our tree planting at MacArthur Park, and just this last week we did a tree planting for our elementary school for Earth Day. So we're on top of things.
That's very good, Robbie, and you do a great job for us. Thank you very much. Anybody needs to know about what kind of trees we need downtown or any place in the city, Robbie's the guy to go to. So thank you, and thank you, Truman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the good work.
We've got this, this is a little award that they give every 10 years, okay? So this, I think signifies the 10th year of us being certified, and you get the next one in another 10 years, right?
Another 4 years.
Another 4 years, that's right, okay.
Good enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we can now move to the executive session portion of our meeting. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of appointments? Second. There's a motion and a second to go into session for the purpose of appointments. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. We're in executive session for that purpose, and I think it will be relatively short, so I appreciate your patience. We're back from executive session, so we are reconvened. And I'll go ahead with the appointments as follows. To the Arts and Culture Commission, I'd like to appoint Eliza Bournet, James Doyle, and Alice Allred. Is there a motion? Is there a second? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. They are approved. On the Board of Adjustment, I'd like to reappoint Carolyn Polk. Is there a motion to confirm?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. She is reappointed, and we'll re-advertise the member of the Little Rock Real Estate Board. On the City Beautiful Commission, I would like to appoint Edward Peak as the registered architect. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. We also have a position open for a civil engineer and a professional urban planner. So anybody's listening that might fill those requirements, we would love to have you on our City Beautiful Commission. On our Civil Service Commission, I would like to reappoint Jeff Hildebrand, Ephraim Neely, and Henry Akins. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. On the Commission for Children, Youth, and Families, I would like to appoint Brendan Quirk, Markovis Williams, Kimberly Kinzer, and Jennifer Wise. Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. They are approved. For the Historic District Commission, I'd like to appoint Dale Picard.
So move.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. He is approved. For the Land Bank Commission, I would like to appoint Laura McKinney.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. For the Parks and Recreation Commission, I would like to appoint Jesse Gibson.
So move.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. He is approved. For the Little Rock Zoo Board of Governors, I would like to appoint reappoint Kamara Randolph.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. For the MacArthur Military Museum, I'd like to reappoint Sharon Priest, Patricia Keegan, Don Castleberry, Pat Hoy, Patrina Robinson, James Von Tunglin, Jerome Tidmore, Chip Culpepper, Norma Jean Johnson, and I would like to appoint Wayne Norton and Kermit Tracy.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Don Castleberry, Chip Culpepper, Jim Von Tunglin, and Joe Keegan have requested a third term. The fact that we're going to be able to do some major improvements to the facility as well as the exhibits there is the reason given on why they're requesting that they be appointed. So that is necessary to be put into the record. So That's my recommendation. There's a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. They are approved. On the Midtown Redevelopment District Number 1 Advisory Board, I'd like to appoint Justin Wittenberg.
So move.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. He's approved. On the Racial and Cultural Diversity Commission, I would like to appoint Rachel Bournet and Corey Jones.
So move.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. They are approved. And now on a resolution for appointment to the Arkansas Arts Center Board of Trustees. I would like to reappoint Del Boyette, Robert Burnett, and appoint Carrie Cooper,
So move.
Marion Folk, Craig Lair, and reappoint Dale Ronell.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. And then finally, on a appointment or reappointment to the Little Rock Advertising and Promotion Commission to appoint Rajesh Mehta to his first four-year term in an industry position.
So move.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Oh, present.
Okay, the resolution passes. Okay, that concludes the items for our recessed meeting. Is there any other business to come before us for this recessed meeting? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn. Second.
There's a motion and a second that we adjourn the recessed meeting. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. For an adjournment. All right. Now, if you would, please turn to the agenda meeting that we have before us. And first of all, Bruce, you passed out two resolutions to us. Would you like to briefly tell us about these? And then I assume you would like these added to the agenda.
I would. Thank you, Mayor. The reason they're just coming, the CYF, we always go to them first to get their endorsement. They met today and endorsed both of these. One is a resolution to authorize entry into contracts to provide summer academic enrichment and recreation programs approved by the Commission on Children, Youth, and Families. And they are all listed there on the second page and which area that they will be serving. And the second resolution is a resolution to authorize me to enter into agreement with Junior Achievement of Arkansas to provide technical assistance and training with our summer employment program.
Hey.
All right, there's a motion to add these to the agenda. And we will do so and read them separately. You want both of them read separately? Okay. All right, Director Wright, did you have your light on?
For youth, I wanted to know where that was, but you're reading them separately, so I guess I can find out at that time.
All right. Very good. All right, those will be added to our agenda and read separately. If you will now look at the consent agenda, proposed consent agenda, items 1 through 11. And let me ask you to look through those 11 items and ask if there are any questions about any of these items. Director Adcock, if you'd turn your light on, please. Which item is that?
Number 11, please.
This is something that the city has to do, the governing body of each city has to do in order for us to go after federal aid, transportation, and alternative program funds. So we're asking permission to do that. And the areas that we're focusing on are 12th Street to War Memorial Trail, and also grant for Ottenheimer Trails with the Arkansas Highway Department, Arkansas Highway and Transportation Department.
How was these selected out of our grant programs? I know I've been working with the Rose Creek people on their trail, and I was wondering how these were selected.
Well, Parks meets with Public Works and others to look at where the needs are. We still have some outstanding issues on Rose Creek that we haven't been able to finalize, but I do feel we'll be able to get it done, but we hadn't gotten it done yet.
Okay, on Ottenheimer is a small park in the Cloverdale subdivision. And so in trying to think of a trail, I think of stuff going through the woods and kind of a rural setting and everything. In Ottenheimer, you can look at one end and look at the other end. So what are we going to do in Ottenheimer that it constitutes a trail by the highway department?
Let me ask Mr. Honeywell to come forward, John.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board, Director Adcock, the Ottenheimer Park, this is one that the Parks Department brought forward for consideration for a grant. They want to enhance the system of trails that are in the park itself. There's a therapeutic program that happens there, and they see this as a possibility to enhance that program with better facilities to work with that therapeutical recreation.
Okay, so it's mainly to work with the population that they have there.
Yes, ma'am, and it would all be confined within the boundaries of the park.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor, also item number 14. It's on there, so that's a planning.
If we could wait and see if we'll get to those ordinances in just a second, Director Hancock. Director Hendricks.
Thank you. I'm familiar with real estate. I noticed that you do have quitclaim deeds here. Do we have any monies that we are having to pay out for either one of these properties? I know the list says except. Except can mean a whole lot of things to me.
They're all donations.
No money spent by the city.
Correct.
Thank you.
Director Wright.
Well, I was back on number 11. And that was going to be a part of my question was how do they select these areas where they apply for these trail grants? Because I know Boyle Park has 244 acres, and I'm getting complaints from people that the trails are not maintained in such a manner that people feel comfortable using them. So I've thrown that out there, Mr. Moore. I sure like.
Mr. Moore, do you?
Sure. There's a pot of money that's statewide, for statewide projects. So we have to look at realistically what we think we can apply for and get done. In this case, for all three of these projects, we're applying for $400,000, or yeah, that's how much we're asking. So it's really a matter of trying to fit the project into the amount of money that, and because this again is a statewide type of grant process, that's the process we've utilized.
Yeah, but the problem I have is how do I get the parks that I have on your radar, or on your staff's radar, so that they can be improved?
Yeah, well, speaking of Boyle Park, I think they have been on the park's radar. I think there's a plan of action on what they're doing, and I'll provide an update on that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any more questions on items 1 through 11? If not, Director Hancock, which number did you want to ask about? Item 14?
Let me ask Mr. Brzezinski to come forward. Tony?
If you turn your microphone on, please, Director Hancock.
Is this because of enforcement by your department? Because I think this is in front of a garage that has been using this for a used car lot for the last several years.
Director Adcock, no, this is not due to any enforcement action. It's an application filed by the owner of the property to rezone it from C1 neighborhood commercial to C4 to allow a small auto sales lot.
What size car sales lot is he wanting there, do you know? How many cars?
I don't know at this point. It's with where the building would go, and then you can't display cars in the first 20 feet of the front yard area. It's going to be a limited number of vehicles. It might be comparable. There's a C4, which is at the bottom of the graphic in front of you. That's just been developed into a car lot. That piece is a little bit bigger than the property in question. But again, it's not going to be a lot of cars.
This is right across the street from the BFI site.
The old landfill? No, this is to the north of it.
Okay.
This is as you can see, it's a mix of zoning and land use. There's a little bit of everything in this area.
And staff recommends this?
Staff is recommending approval, and the Planning Commission vote was 11 ayes, 0 noes on consent.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, items 12 through 17. Any other questions on any of those items? Director Adcock.
Item 18.
Mr. Moore, we had talked about this item. Would you like to brief us on it? Or have...
Sure. Let me ask Melissa Bridges to come forward.
Melissa, please start out by explaining to me what this is.
Yes, ma'am, I sure will. Good evening, Mayor and Board. So a year ago, I came before you because the city had been chosen by Bloomberg Philanthropies to be a part of an initiative called What Works Cities. And through that, we have gotten world-class help for free from organizations such as Harvard on purchasing issues, on Sunlight Foundation around open data, and other issues. And so what this is a continuation of that process. We had already purchased from Socrata, that vendor, their open data platform, and that was some of what I came to talk to the neighborhood association at the end of the year and showed them and kind of walk them through some of that. Mm-hmm. And this is adding on to that, because what we're trying to do now is actually start putting performance measures around. We say we want to focus on public safety. Okay, well, what is the data that goes behind that to say what does that mean and how are we going to measure it? And when we tell the citizens we're going to do X, Y, Z, how do we have a way to show them clearly that they can understand that's not a whole bunch of graphs and charts or a book that's that thick and I have to say turn to this page. A website and some information that we can put out there and put meaning to so that they can understand when the city says they're going to do this, let us show you through that process how we're going to do that. So that's what this purchase is. It's the next step into that program that we're doing. And the position that I'm in now, the Performance and Innovation Coordinator, this is another piece in that toolkit that the city's going to use to start building that communication with our citizens.
Okay.
Melissa, I know we've been working on this for a year, and I know we've got a lot of open portals now that we've opened up for a variety of different things that we can check on and the citizens can check on. Could you do a little memorandum to us, please, when you get a chance to
Sure, and
update us on
actually,
that?
the other thing that we owe you, when you all passed the resolution last year putting our open data policy in place, in that policy, it states that we, as your open data governance committee, and myself in this position and the city manager, has to come in front of this board and tell you what progress we've made year over year for that. And we're to that point that it's time for us to come do that. But sure, I could put something together for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
I might add, this is really good stuff to help us really learn and figure out how we can and actually be accountable and make sure that what we think we're doing right is actually being executed and has got real data behind it to be able to prove it. Okay, ordinance 19 is a public hearing. This has to do with the ATA International Industrial Revenue Bonds. We'll go ahead and have that public hearing. And then item 20 is the, I'm sorry, Director Wyrick, did you have a question on an item?
It was way back there, but I'm okay.
Go ahead.
No, my questions were answered. Thank you.
Okay, Director Hendricks.
Could you have Mr. Moore to explain this, there's a city manager dispenser number 18.
Which number?
18. You know, we talk a lot of stuff up here, but the people
That's
that's
what-
watching, they don't even know what we're talking about.
That's what Melissa Bridges was just discussing with
Well,
us.
I couldn't understand her dialect.
Okay.
I just couldn't.
So we, as Melissa mentioned, was selected by the Bloomberg Foundation about 18 months ago to really focus on making sure our data is out to the public, our website. We have a lot of information on our website, but is it the information that the citizens want or need? So I've appointed a committee. We're going to include someone from the public on that committee that to help us determine what type of portals, what they're called, need to be out there. So that, like for instance, the CompStat report, it's out there now, and we're going to work on making sure that citizens can get into it, look at, and right now it's just a document, but this will allow our citizenry and you all to have more access to the data that we have.
So that's what the mayor was asking, that we get a copy?
No, I think what he wants, and we talked about it this afternoon, is just an overall list of what we have, our different portals that are out there. So I'll provide that.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, we sit up here and talk, and a lot of times people ask me when I say I don't know myself. Thank you, Bruce. Mr. Moore.
Okay, the final item on our agenda, well, the next to last final item is the resolution to rescind the Planning Commission action on the conditional use permit for the property out on Highway 10. That's been deferred a couple of times, 3 times, I guess, maybe more. 1, 2, 3 times. So it's on for May 5th. Go ahead, Director Hancock.
I understand that Mr. Ferguson has a new type of thing that he wants to use, and I would like to know what it is and how it's going to be used.
It was my indication that the technology that the reason he delayed was to try the new technology, and the new technology did not work. So that's what I think you'll hear next Tuesday.
So this is just the same plan that he had before?
Correct.
Nothing new?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, the final item on our agenda is an update on the Bowman Road study, the Bowman Road multifamily moratorium update.
Mayor, we have these 2 resolutions.
We already did those.
Okay, we're going.
Thank you.
Remember, there was a moratorium put in place by this board on multifamily building for a year. That has expired. I'll turn, if you turn to the second page where it talks about what we were supposed to do, and I'll just update the board there. The traffic patterns in this area, including the neighborhoods of Berta Creek, Sandpiper Creek, Cherry Creek, and Woodlands Edge. Draining issues in the area is noted in subsection A. Cut-through traffic in the neighborhood noted in subsection A during peak traffic times of a given day. An estimate of costs associated with the impacts discovered during this study, and a list of steps that would have to be taken to mitigate these impacts. And then finally, you said Okay, if we did want to change something out there, what would we do? What would be required? So that's what you'll see today, and we'll start off with Public Works and the traffic patterns. And Assistant Director of Public Works, Ronnie Lowe, will handle that part of the portion. Ronnie, of the presentation. We do, because John brought a whole stack of them. Just raise your hand if you'd like one. Okay, go ahead, Ronnie.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. Public Works took the resolution that you passed and went through these items. And I'm going to walk through kind of the steps that we did to look at what you asked us to look at, and then kind of give you an overview of what we found. Concerning the traffic patterns, we went out and performed traffic counts on all these neighborhoods, the entrances of each road that went into the neighborhoods, and did counts to try to identify all traffic coming in, all traffic going out. And in addition to that, staff took and counted the number of homes in each of these areas, and based on, historical data and trip generation numbers that are used in traffic studies, calculated how much traffic should be there based on that number of homes. And then we also reviewed the traffic study that was generated by the developer for those apartment complexes, and looked at it to make sure we were in agreement with what they were showing and what their findings were for that. Yeah. Related to the study for the apartment complexes there on Bowman Road, they showed that the current level of traffic is a level service E, which means that it is not good, it's congested, and we agree with their findings there. We also agree with, adding the apartments that they proposed in that area doesn't substantially change that for that area of Bowman Road. So, well, the traffic is already bad. So adding more apartments there does not substantially change the way the traffic is going to react in that area, because there's already cars on the road that are creating delay. So it's not going to make traffic better, but it's not going to push it to a failure mode as they propose. Level of service E. Level of service F is the worst you can have. That's a gridlock, meaning that it just doesn't function. So, okay, let me try to go through what level of service E would mean. Level of service E means that your roadway is near capacity, that it's near capacity, and that there's high delay values that generally relate to poor performance, extended travel times, and just kind of uncomfortable on the roadway because of the amount of traffic that's out there. So a layer F would mean that just an unacceptable. Most people avoid the area just because they can't get through the area. They're going somewhere else, and it's just gridlock in the area. It's kind of so we're not saying that traffic out there is good. We're just saying that apartments out there are not going to substantially change the current traffic patterns out there.
Okay, Director Adcock, you're recognized first, please.
If they're bad now, and you add more, how do you get from E to F? What makes you go from E to F? If more apartments, more people, more traveling don't push it, what pushes it from E to F?
Well, if you had more and more traffic out there, you would eventually get to an F situation, yes.
Okay, we've got
But
lots of...
what we're saying is, looking at what they proposed, it didn't change it. It didn't push it that far.
is that looking at all the future phases that they still have to make, or is that looking at what's there right now?
That was looking at what they studied and what they
And all the
proposed.
phases they're planning is still not going to push it to F?
Not from what they proposed with their traffic study. The traffic they proposed in their traffic study, no, ma'am.
In their traffic study?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Director Wright, you're recognized.
Well, I think basically you just answered my question, because she asked it. Because your conclusions really don't make a lot of sense to me. If it's congested now and you add more cars, it's going to be even more congested. It may not make it a failure, but how can you say that it won't significantly change the
Because it's
ability of a
exactly what you
vehicle to
just said.
travel through?
Because it's not good out there now, it will not be good later, but it will not be to the point of failure.
But it will impact the livability of the area for the people that live there.
It will not make traffic better. It will, but it's not measurably worse. I mean, you're going to have peak hour problems, you're going to have noon problems, you're going to have, afternoon problems. So there's other times that the roadway is functioning okay.
I know I don't understand how engineers think and talk, but what you're saying don't make any sense to me. I'm just gonna tell you.
Okay.
Because if you add 2,000 more apartments at average of 2 cars per apartment to an already level of service E, to me that ought to significantly impact the travelability of that corridor. I just don't see how it could not.
And we're not saying that it doesn't, we're just saying that it stays in that same level of service if you.
Which is bad.
Yes, that's true.
I'll give you that much.
Okay.
Director Fortson, you're recognized.
Excuse me, right, explain level of service calculations to me. Does it, if you have, like Bowman Road, and you have it presently at a level of service at E, do you make any adjustments based upon heavier traffic times? Explain.
Level of service is
90
more,
seconds
it's
how you do
kind of a
this.
qualitative measure of traffic. It doesn't measure how many cars, it just measures how does traffic get up and down the roadway. And it looks at what the speed of the cars are, the delay that people are having to sit through to go through, how hard is it to get in and out, how comfortable are you on the roadway with the cars in front of you and behind you, what kind of spacing they are. It's just a projection of that.
It's a subjective study.
It is very subjective.
Okay.
That's correct.
Is there any formula when a road is a high level E about to become a level F? Does that tell you that there needs to be action taken to widen that road or reconstruct it or anything?
If you're asking an engineer, they would not want a level service E roadway. You would want to do improvements when it gets to that point to widen the roadway, add lanes. Is what the next point is. In order to improve the level of service out there, you need more lanes. You need wider lanes, more lanes, and, just more capacity built into the roadway.
Ronnie, did you take into account that the proposed additions of apartments out there will require them to make roadway improvements?
That is included in their study, yes.
So
that
that's
they do
included
some
in your
widening
analysis.
and improvements in and out of their apartment complexes and also onto the roadway.
So these conclusions, just to make sure I understand, take that into account.
They do.
The improvements that they would be required to make.
They do.
All right. Director Hines.
Okay. Right. So, and because I'm on that corridor quite frequently, it seems to me that the intersection of Canis and Bowman seems to be the choke point that backs traffic up. From there to that parkway, did you look at, because when we looked at the traffic counts further down Bowman, the developers out there are gonna do half street and full street improvements where required, but it doesn't seem to me like the developers aren't gonna be able to address the choke point problems, which is up at Canis and Bowman, correct?
That is correct.
So what percentage of the problem is at those intersections versus the actual roadway? Is
Almost
it
all of it.
Almost all of it's at the intersection?
Well, all of your congestion and delay is going to be at your intersections.
Right, and that's what's causing the backups down a mile and a half down Bowman, correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
So the focus really is not anything a developer's gonna be able to focus. It's gonna be something the city is gonna have to address through a capital project,
That's
correct? Okay. How much? All right, Bill. The other question is, I know with the additional lows at that intersection, we are making some improvements to the intersection. But it's my understanding, talking to everybody in that area, we need to improve from Canis all the way back to Financial Center Parkway. Is that correct? At less than half a mile? If we could improve that, we would essentially address the majority of the traffic issues.
A lot of
for
the
that
issues are right
corridor.
there at Bowman and Canis, with just the traffic from Bowman trying to get up to Canis is where a
Okay,
lot of the
so it
issues
really
are.
doesn't have a nexus with the apartments, the multifamily development further south on Bowman, correct?
No, that's,
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at here. The problems on Bowman are
problem's
not
there.
they're already there.
Yes.
They're being caused by Lowe's going in, the development of that corridor. All right, that's what I'm trying to get at. Let me see if, that's it. That's all the questions I had on that section. Thank you.
Director Wyrick.
Thank you, Mayor. My questions have been answered or asked and answered, except for one thing. Level of service F. What's the definition of F? Because I think I heard you say it'd be a location where people would avoid. And so if it gets to be F and we avoid it, then that clears up the congestion on that location, right? So that may be our goal, is to get to F.
Well, I mean, there's still gonna be, people are gonna try to take the easiest routes, and that, then they start moving away from that. You're getting into, F means there's more cars than can get through the intersections through just a immeasurable, I mean, it's not measurable. Like I said, it's very hard to quantitate of what a level of service have. It's gonna be gridlock. It means you're sitting through multiple cycles to get through intersections. It's just, you don't wanna go that way because of the traffic.
Yeah, so I went down that way on a Saturday afternoon about 3 o'clock, and it was traffic way far backed up on Bowman Road. That was before we started looking at some of the later apartment complexes there. So I just wanted, I mean, it seems like to me the goal is F, and so then everybody avoids the location and it clears up the
I think we would say the
problem.
goal would be let's improve it and not leave it at F. But
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, I think if we can get through the presentation, well, a lot of the questions I think will be answered, because we did a lot of traffic studies, and so we're going to go ahead.
All right, well, I've got Director Wright and Director Hendricks that have already turned their lights on. Are you wanting to ask your questions now, or wait? You wanted to ask your question now? Well, all right, Bruce, we'll try and do it. We'll try and take that for all the other people that haven't pushed their lights on yet. Director Wright, you're recognized next.
Okay, I understand where Director Hines was going with his questions, Mr. Lowe, and I hate to put you on the spot, but if you know where the problem is, why have you not fixed it? Why has there not been a plan to improve the intersection at Bowman and Canis? Every time I talk to somebody, well, acquisition of the property that we need is going to be so much money.
It's a question of money. It's a question of money to spend, to buy right away, to widen the roadway and make those improvements. We have a project on Canis right now to make widening on Canis. We have a project on the other side of Bowman to make, there is not money allocated for Bowman Road.
So, do you have a figure in mind that you would need?
We're gonna get there. Yes, ma'am.
All right, Director Hendricks.
The thing that I wanted to say is that I know I don't even live in that area, but I would suggest that Ronnie is here to really tell us what they are going to do with the pattern itself. It's not to satisfy an individual. Nobody up here that lives in that area, and he know I'm talking about him. He said he lived on the corner. I could care less where he lived, as long as you do that traffic pattern that you're trying to do. So I think that's what Mr. Moore may have been hitting on, money and all that stuff. It's for the people that's living out there. And I say to anybody, if you don't like it down there, move back downtown.
Okay, Ryan, let's go.
All right, if we could, let's let the staff try and do the entire report. And if you'll just make notes on the various pages, if you have questions, and then we'll try and get to those.
The next slide is going to talk about the next item, which is drainage in the area. And staff, while there are some minor drainage issues in the area, we looked at it as how will future apartments and things affect the drainage in the area. And we have detention and drainage requirements for new developments, and all those facilities would have to go through that, and we do not see that as a negative impact on the adjacent properties out there because of the things that they'll be required to do to mitigate those situations. Next. Another item was cut through traffic in the neighborhood. So like we said, we went out and did traffic counts on all these neighborhoods that are mentioned in and out, the total number of traffic. We compared that to what would be expected to be there because of the number of houses based on trip generation. And cut through traffic did not appear to be an issue based on our counts and what was projected out there. The actual counts were actually less than what was projected for all of those neighborhoods. So for one example would be Cherry Creek. There's 893 homes. Trip generation's 8,500 cars a day, and the actual counts were 8,000 cars a day. And the map, the next picture, actually shows each of those subdivisions. Scott, if you'll flip one more. It shows each of those subdivisions where we made counts and identifies, what those counts were. You can see Brody Creek was another one. Brody Creek has 793 homes in it. The trip generation estimate was 7,500 cars a day. The actual count is 6,300 cars a day. Peachtree was another one. I think Peachtree is right at half of what Brody Creek is, has about 380 houses in it. And it was projected to have around 3,700 cars a day, and the actual count for it is around 3,000, or 3,300. So we did not see cut-through traffic as being prevalent in those numbers. Now, are there people that cut through? There probably are a few, but it's not it's not showing up in traffic numbers. Scott? The last one is, I think, where we've been going the whole time here is what has to happen out here, and it's a major construction project for Bowman Road is the answer to mitigate traffic. The estimate that we looked at for Bowman Road would be to build a 5-lane section out there from Canis to 36th Street. That stretch alone is around $15 million estimated. And then if you continue on from 36th Street down to Colonel Glenn, that's another $7 million. So you're looking at about a $22 million project to widen that section of roadway.
Next, we're going to go into the land use part of it, and let me ask Mr. Brzezinski to come forward.
Ronnie, would that include would that cost include the signalization issues that were discussed previously?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Director Wright?
Before we move to the next section, that really didn't answer the question that I asked. That's for the total Bowman Road. I understand that. But you responded to Director Hines that the problem was actually at Canis and Bowman.
Well, in the area of Canis and Bowman.
So why not fix that? That's my question.
Is there an incremental amount to do
Sure.
some improvements other than the entire
Sure.
section that could you
If
give
you
us
do
an update on that number?
We can give you an update on that.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe Tony's next on deck. Welcome, Tony.
Good evening, or still good afternoon. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. The last item is item E. As Mr. Moore described it, it was to look at future development of the corridor and the land use plan, and what was requested, what would it take in terms of possible changes or amendments to the land use plan to, as it says, preclude any future multifamily development to take place. So, Mr. Carter, if we can go to the next slide. This slide shows the existing zoning along the corridor from the Sandpiper Creek, Brody Creek, Woodlands Edge neighborhoods south to south of Colonel Glenn. And it's a mixed pattern. There's commercial zoning, there's residential. And we've highlighted the approved multifamily projects up to this point, starting with the project further to the south. That's been approved and permitted for 240 units. That's a planned development. Then continuing north on the east side of Bowman, north of West 36th Street. That's an approved project with 500 units, and I think about 440 have been permitted. Then on the west side is the first completed project, and that's 498 units. So that's the current development pattern along the corridor. Now, if we could go to the next slide. Yes, I will. This is the future land use plan for the corridor, for the same area going from those neighborhoods south down to Colonel Glenn, or even south of Colonel Glenn. The red is commercial. The purple or lighter purple either represents office, suburban office, or mixed office and commercial. That the RH area, whatever color you want that to be, that's residential high density. A portion of that is developed with a multifamily project. And then to the north, there's the kind of a lighter, not a yellow, but the RM area. That's residential medium density. That's approximately 30 acres that are still undeveloped on the west side of Bowman. Then on the east side of Bowman, there's a small area of residential medium density. A portion of that property is occupied, the southern two-thirds approximately, is occupied by a nursing home rehabilitation center. It's been there for quite some time. And then on the east side, as you move south towards West 36th Street, there's a large area of mixed use, the MX. Portion of that is the church at Rock Creek. Then what would be the western half of that large area is an existing multifamily project. That's the one that's been approved for 500 units. And I think the green is park open space, and the lighter yellow is RL, which is up to 6 units per acre. That's typically single family. And I think that pretty much covers most of the colors. If I've missed something, please let me know. And there is a small area of neighborhood commercial at the intersection of 36 and West 36 and Bowman Road. And thank you for blowing that up, Scott. The next slide. Again, the task that planning and development looked at was what changes or amendments would be necessary to, as the resolution says, preclude or possibly eliminate future multifamily development. So starting on the south end of the corridor, closer to Colonel Glenn, the area that's crosshatched is currently shown as residential high density. It's occupied by a mobile home park that's been there for a number of years. And to eliminate potential development for multifamily, staff is suggesting a change from the RH to MOC, which is mixed office and commercial. That's you can see on the land use plan, that area is more non-residential. There's commercial on the east side, mixed office and commercial to the north of that. To the south of this crosshatch area is mixed office and commercial. That intersection of Bowman, Colonel Glenn, and Dave O'Dodd is primarily non-residential. So that's what would, again, to do away with the potential for multifamily, a land use plan change to this category would be suggested.
But
and the
let
northern
me just say something that the last assignment was to if something were to change, what would need to change. Tony suggested that we are suggesting a change, and that's not accurate. So I want to clear that up. This is just to show if, because that was part of the direction, that if you didn't want any multifamily out there, what would you do? And that's what this is.
Correct, I'm sorry, Bruce, but if the board want to go in this direction, here's what needs to take place. And next slide. These are the two areas of the residential medium density. The large area is approximately 30 acres on the west side of Bowman, and then that smaller area on the east side, which again is occupied by the rehab or nursing home facility. And again, to move away from potential for multifamily on the east side, a change to suburban office that would allow a similar development as you have on the southern portion, and then on the larger RM, the 30-acre site on the west side of Bowman, to RL, which is the residential low density. That's typically less than 6 units per acre, but would allow patio homes or some form of cluster development. It doesn't necessarily have to be detached single family. And that's the task that planning and development looked at, was future development and land use plan and the current zoning along the corridor.
So Bruce, if I understand correctly, the staff is not recommending either of those two land use changes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Questions from the board members for Tony? Okay. Thank you, Tony.
That concludes our presentation. I believe we took the 6 items that were in the resolution and reviewed each one of those. I think our staff did a great job of looking at what's out there now, what's projected to be out there, and feel that the current plan is the correct plan. And if the board members wanted to change it, our charge was to show you what would need to do via an amendment.
Okay. Director Compuris, you're recognized, please.
Bruce, ever since I've been here, our development of expansion of roads has been done by development, correct?
Correct.
And we have the 3rd phase of our bond issue coming up. I don't know if this would be popular or even possible, but is there a way of taking the intersection we've been talking about and allotting the money that would be required to fix it, and then have people pay us as they develop the area? It seems to me that every time we look at these things, we talk about that it's a D or an E or an F level of service. All of them are unacceptable. And if we know the problem, if we know where the pressure point is, as Lance said, then, we need to start thinking outside the box on what we're going to do about it. And we have a 3rd round coming up, and I don't know how we would do it. We have a little time before we start looking at that, and I would suggest we at least look at that alternative as something to do to try to make a difference in this. I mean, we're gonna, if we accept this and continue what we're gonna do, you're right. It's not gonna make. I mean, Ronnie's right. It's not gonna make any difference. It's gonna go from bad to a little bit worse bad, but it's not gonna be. We're not going to make it any a whole lot worse, but it's certainly not any better, and it's not acceptable now. And it just, I appreciate what you've done. I appreciate what y'all have done, but it looks to me like we need to start thinking outside the box and figuring out where the pressure point is. We have some money coming up, and have a discussion about what it would take to do it and how that would look as we try to divide the money up. And I would suggest we, over some period of time, start doing that.
And Dr. Compuris, you would remember just recently there was an individual down here who owned the, I can't remember the plaza there. You know, we're designing the project to Bowman currently from a standpoint. We got both Director Hines and Director Wright agreed to use some of their ward-specific money. Also did some citywide money. We think with this project we'll be able to get to the embassy with the money we have. So it would be obvious that the next phase would try to continue that, but we're designing it all the way to Bowman.
Well, I know, but my point is, I think we need to, instead of saying, it's like I tell people when I want them to exercise, and they say, I don't have time to do it, and the last thing, they say, I've got to do this, 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 and this, and at the end of the day, I'm going to exercise. Well, you never do that. You have to start and say, the first thing I'm going to do is exercise, and then I'm going to figure out how to do the rest of my day. If the problem is this intersection, we need to figure out how we're going to take care of that and then work back to the other places, to my way of thinking. It's maybe completely wrong. But at least while we have some time, I would urge you and the board to look at this as here's the weak point in this area. Here's the weak point in how we're ever going to develop. How do we take care of that? And then how do we get paid back? How do we use the same principles, but do it first and get the money back later? And I don't know how to do that, but you know, you've got a great department. You're an extraordinarily smart city manager, but I think we look at this wrong because we've been crippled all along by our rules about expansion of roads. And I think this is all fine and good, but we're going to just maintain the status quo. I mean,
Director Compuris, I think that the question is a priority. I know we're designing Canis and we're buying right away now. We're not going to get paid back for that. So, I mean, the only point to be made is if we're going to do it, we do it and we allocate the money for it. I don't think we're going to be able to factor a way to get paid back for it.
Someone just needs to sit down and say, here's our priority. How do we fix that? And then how do we do it? It's a little frustrating to me what we just talked about doing. No offense, but
okay. Thank you, Director Hines. You're next, please.
Thanks. As a follow-up to this, Bruce, would you have, I guess this would either be planning or public works, just go through that corridor, you know, where Brody Creek and Woodlands Edge have been built, and go back to, I think, 2005. I don't know when Brody Creek was started. I think it was before that, but Woodlands Edge I don't think started until either 2005 or 2010. And go in 5-year increments, 2005, 2010, 2015, and 2018, and see if we can find a census of how many rooftops have gone into that area, because I think the genesis of most of the traffic out there is going to be single-family residential. That's where a majority, there are more homes and more trips generated by single-family residential in that corridor, and I think we're gonna find. Then also look at how much traffic is coming in from southwest of the county. So basically coming in off of Colonel Glenn, that southern terminus of Bowman and Colonel Glenn. There's a ton of traffic coming in from folks. There's been a lot of development in western Saline County that come in off of Colonel Glenn in that area. I think that'll have some impact. The other question I had was, let me get to it here. I'm a little buffaloed by the estimate. I know it's an expensive deal, and if we get what we wish for, which is 5 lanes, right now on Canis from Bowman West, we're only doing 3 lanes because that's all the money we had to do it. I think we need to concentrate our efforts on where 80% of the problem is, which is from Bowman back to Executive Center. And I know one of the property owners that has property, I know two things. There was one property owner that did in lieu payments that money was returned to him because we never did the improvements to the roadway right there. Right, I mean, it's right before you get to Executive Center. It's between the skating rink and Robert Vogel's property. But I know for a fact that Mr. Vogel offered to do some dirt work so we could realign the roadway there, and we haven't taken him up on it. There's an opportunity for public-private partnership along with our private money to get this done. And I think if we can address the intersection from Bowman back to Executive Center, that'll fix 80% of the problem. Then we can look at doing 3 lanes the rest of the way down to 36th Street, and then we can use the Boundary Street ordinance to do the half street improvements like we're going to do on the western portion of Canis. We were forced by our budget to not get exactly what we wanted, but a major improvement. And I would say a 3-lane section from south of there, just like we're doing on Canis west of Bowman, is going to be a marked improvement over the 2-lane goat trail that's there on Canis and Bowman right now. And that's just my take on it. I know when we start talking about taxpayer money and stuff, it all gets to be funny money when you see $22 million. I think we can do it for a whole lot less and get some improvement in the meantime. That's just my suggestion, but you know, it's not my ward, Doris, but it's what I'm waiting for you to let me talk. But it's what we're doing. It's what we're doing west, where we share a boundary on Canis. I mean, we're doing what we can, but having a 3-lane section there with sidewalks and a center turn lane over what's there right now, and I would dare to say that the traffic counts on the western end of Canis are at least as much, if not more, than they are on the southern end of Bowman. I mean, they're pretty similar streets. And we both need both of those corridors for the future expansion of both of our wards. And that's all I got to say, Doris.
Director Adcock, you're recognized, please.
I think after 25 years, I've got this opinion that studies always show us something that we know in the beginning, so why take time to look at it? Because it never answers what to do. It always tells us, you know, the study that we had at ULR on apartments, we knew all of that. Most of our studies we do, we know the problem. We just don't know how we're going to fix it. Mr. Moore, on this third and final funding on infrastructure, how much money is in bonds?
Quite a bit.
I think it's 2.6 award, so that's like 14 million or?
More than that.
Yes, it's about 45, 55 left. And then, we'll take 10% off of that, and do, yeah, I thought it was 45. It's 45 million. We take 10% off of that to do, you know, to allow us to do citywide projects, and then divide the rest up by ward.
How much do we have in the citywide project bucket?
I'll have to get that because we made some commitments out of that already for this first phase, but I'll get you an update on.
Quit playing ward politics up here, and why don't we say this is one of the biggest problems in this city?
About $6 million.
And why don't we solve it? You know, we all know what the problem is. We know how it's tearing up our city and everything. So why not just say, you know, we're going to solve the problem out there. We can study this and study this and study this, but until we get serious about doing something about it, a study's not going to do us any good. And I appreciate all the pretty pictures. I just wish the writing was a little bit bigger in them. And there was an explanation at the bottom so I could figure out what the colors mean. But, you know, you sit up here with studies, and we know the problem. We know what it's going to take. We know where the money is, but we just don't want to spend it for that. So, you know, until we grow up and we decide that certain things are very, very important to the city, we're going to be studying and still knowing what the problems are and still waiting. Thank you.
Director Hendricks, you recognized, please.
Listening to some of our board members, you would think we live in New York City when you talk about all these lanes. I just don't agree with that. But I support what Mr. Moore has asked the staff to do, and I think that some of us is talking about all this, why don't we switch jobs? Okay? And you don't have to correct me, I mean what I say. You hear all these criticisms and all this stuff. Why is Tony and Ronnie working? They don't need to be working if these folk up here gonna run the business.
Well,
I mean that.
We were following the direction of the resolution, and, you know, also Director Adcock, you know, this board made the decision on how the dollars would be split, and we can always revisit that, but you all remember that discussion and that fight. And that ultimately, the board decided that we take 10% off and then divide it evenly by wards, and that's how we've done the sales tax and the bond proceeds. And the other part of this on the third phase, I've talked about the 45 million, but we also have the sales tax money, and that was about 2.5 million last time.
Mr. Moore, has the board ever made mistakes? Were they sorry for something that they did? I would say yes.
Well, I'm not gonna
Okay.
say
I know you can't say it, but I can say whatever I please.
Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Moore, I'm going to, since as Lance said, it's not his ward, I do appreciate his help and his concern. I hope he'll help me out with a few dollars. But I I have heard repeatedly that this problem can be solved and by fixing that intersection. I heard that there was a suggestion made by one of our, not a city staff person, but I think he's either an engineer or something that actually does a lot of work for our private businesses, that made a suggestion. Yet every time I broach this to staff, they act like they'd never heard of this before. So what I'm asking for is a cost estimate to fix that intersection, all the way down to, I think you said Financial Center, and just that. Not trying to make it 5 lanes or whatever, but to relieve that situation. Something that we can realistically do in the next round of funding. Because I'm willing to put some ward funds as well as ask you for some citywide funds, because it's a corridor that's traveled widely. And it really does need to be fixed. And this $22 million estimate is, of course, you know, just something that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Now, I would remind you, you also this week asked me for citywide funds for another project.
And I'm going to keep asking, because I know there's a lot of projects get done, and I know they didn't come out of ward funds. So I'm saying if everybody else can access those funds, why can't I access those funds?
I would remind you that not only did you put in dollars and Director Hines, we also put in citywide dollars in this project.
I agree, and I'm asking him to help me again. Okay. But please, hopefully you'll get that to me, because I know my constituents are going to be asking about this study. I would like to have this electronically so that I can send it out. And I know they have a Facebook page, and we can kind of tell them what we're looking at. And I did attend a public-private partnership conference where I learned some information about how to do that. And this type project is something that they would do, but I'm hearing from others that it shouldn't even cost $22 million. So I don't know. Let's fix this intersection first, and then maybe we can.
And again, I appreciate that. I'll come back with the numbers, but the D part of our charge was an estimate of costs associated with impacts discovered during this study and listing the steps that would have to be taken to mitigate those impacts. So we were looking at the entire picture, and I felt like that's what the direction was given.
And it was, but I don't understand why we got to do 5 lanes. Is that just our standard?
I think they understand what the board is asking for, so. I mean, you asked for the intersection and from executive down to Bowman, and so we'll get that information.
So you don't want me to finish asking my question?
Go ahead if you've got more questions, please.
I was talking to the manager and you interrupted what I was saying. So I guess you had a reason.
Go ahead, Director Wright.
What standard are you basing that 5 lanes on?
Mr. Lowe.
The 5-lane section is the standard for that roadway.
Standard for, based upon what? Who?
Your master street plan. that the city has.
And that was predicated based upon what?
Based upon the
Is it
classification.
federal,
Classification
state,
of the street.
local?
No, it's a local plan. Master street plan is a local plan. And that's the street classification for Bowman Road. It's a minor arterial, and that is a 5-lane section.
Okay, so if it's a local plan, it can be changed.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, but you ain't got $22 million to fix this street either.
Well, you know.
Thank you.
The master street plan is designed based on the estimate of growth in certain areas and actually the amount of travel and the amount of traffic that's going to be generated. So that's kind of how we get the distinction between collectors and arterials. Okay, Director Wyrick.
Thank you,
You're
Mayor.
recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a solution to this, but I will tell you that there are some more pockets of property that are just like this, that across the city, that we have traffic congestion problems. We focused on this one because there were so many apartments that were going in, and we had such a tiny little road to carry the traffic. So there are more places that are like this in the city that are going to pop up, because we incrementally continue to approve development, large-scale development, and so it's going to happen. And I think what Dean was talking about was the dreaded impact fee. How do we do that? But we have chosen as a city that we would require half-street improvements, and the impact fees, you know, that in effect is an impact fee as opposed to a development creating an impact fee. So this is one situation. If we can solve it, that'd be great. But there are many more out there, and I know when a few weeks ago, Lance, when we were talking about the sewer in West Little Rock, and I brought up the fact that we need to look at development process as well as the sewer, and this is exactly the reason why we need to try to do the planning and get things set up so we don't have these pockets of property where all of a sudden we have to pay $22 million to help with the situation. Like I said, I don't have an answer, but I will tell you that there are many struggles across the city where we have some of the same issues, and we need to try to figure out how to do it. But our current planning, our current strategy for half-street development is going to create some issues as we go through. So that's it. Thank you.
Director Fortson, you're recognized, please.
I sound like a parrot repeating mostly what Director Wyrick just said. What was Pogo's famous statement, "I've met the enemy and it's us"? Because if you look, according to Ronnie's numbers, we've got 5 subdivisions out there with 18,615 vehicles per day right now spilling onto the same, somebody called it goat trail, that Bowman has been all this period of time. And there are no numbers in here really counting the people from further south who may be using Bowman as an access to get to the northern part of the western part of the city. I think this is a classic example of what we have to do is take a look at what's required to build infrastructure there one way or another to support not apartment future development notwithstanding, but just to support what we've already allowed to be constructed there in 5 single-family developments with a lot of people in them who are having trouble right now getting out and getting to town. I mean, the level of service may only be an E, but in my driving up Bowman Road, sometimes I think it's a Z because it gets very, very slow. But anyway, repeating the obvious.
Director Hines, you're recognized, please.
Thank you. And Bruce, one of the other things too, that one of the things, because of our Boundary Street improvement, and I know that this is probably not some that want to hear, but the development from our developers is good. They're doing those half-street improvements, which reduces the demand for us. On the western end of Canis, we're about to have everything from the bridge to Pride Valley is essentially going to be widened by one developer. Now we have it's harder to do when you've got 75 property owners on Canis to get an improvement, but maybe one of the things we can look at on Bowman is the creation of some type of improvement district. it would benefit all the property owners around it that are impacted, but, you've got to vote to tax yourself when you do that. That's something that I think we need to pull out all the stops to consider what funding options there are for us. I think the amount of improvements that could be made and the property value improvements along that stretch might make sense for those property owners to throw in on some type of improvement district as well. But I think that's one of the things we can look at. We're working hopefully to get in the next, I guess it'll be 4 years before we do the bond issue. I'm hoping that we get enough development on the western end of Canis. We have less of that work to do and might have some more money to work with on South Bowman. But as it stands, to go from, in my ward, from, I guess, Gamble, where we're going to end the improvements, all the way to Chenal on Canis, that's, I think, a $6 or $7 million nut. I'm hoping that we'll start chipping it away with the developers that are already doing developments there, and we'll end up with just having to do a bridge and some minor widenings through there. So, but I think we ought to throw that into the mix too, as well as look at doing some type of improvement district in those areas as well. Thanks.
Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
Yes, Director Hines, I really like the thought of us having those discussions, because one of the main component of this public-private partnership, whereby you work with this private company to fix this stretch of the corridor, you have to have a funding stream to pay back the funds, and you can do that over a period of time, but it has to be a funding stream, and that improvement district could help that. And it would let us get that road completed right away, because they would put up the funds to do so. And we utilize the improvement district funds and whatever funds that we wanted to put out of our citywide to go ahead and take care of the project. Mr. Moore? I'm just we're throwing it all out there, because trust me, they are watching.
I mean, I would love for the property owners to come together and form a district and improvement district and fix that. But this, as Director Hines said, that's taxing themselves, and that's something that they have to lead. That's not something that we can demand of them.
But it's now out there. We talked about it on there. Thank you.
Okay, Bruce and Sarah, if you could, for this next round of street and drainage improvements with both the bond money and the millage money that we have dedicated, would you give us what that amount of money is going to be for each, what the anticipated amount of money is going to be for each one of the wards? And then, of course, we can calculate the 10% set aside, but I'd like to know whether, I think there's probably some still set aside money we have not yet used in the first two rounds, so you can maybe let us know what that number is too, please. Pardon? Oh, well, if it's committed, just let us know it's committed. Director Campuris.
Well, if we do that, why don't we take the amount of money we're going to have available for distribution and have Ronnie and his group prioritize the major places in town, as BJ was saying, that need to be fixed in order to ease things, and have that as part of the calculation too. If we assume from the start that there's only this much money and this is how it's going to be dispersed, then we have no chance of doing anything different. So let's find out what the projects are that they think in a priority fashion that need to be done, and then we can start trying to be policymakers and make hard decisions on how to take care of things. And that's what I think we're supposed to be doing.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Director Campuris. That is all that we have for our agenda, so thank you all very much. Oh, Director Hendricks, sorry.
Thank you. I want to ask Mr. Moore, write down with your pen 2,600 gains, if you'll tell the staff to do a follow-up with me on that property. I think somebody's trying to pull a curve, but I'm too smart for that.
Director Campuris.
Sometime, can we have Central Arkansas Water come and give us a progress report of where they are in the purchasing of our next source of water, and if that deal has been consummated or not, and if it's not, why it hasn't been done and when it'll be done.
Okay, very good. We'll make that request and have them come and give us an update. Okay, if there's nothing else, thank you all very much for being with us tonight.